Welcome to the Winning in Business podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Rissy, and I love talking to business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are winning in business. Are you ready to reach your next level of success? If so, join us on the Winning in Business podcast as I interview entrepreneurs, business professionals, and leaders who share how they've risen to success. Before we begin, go ahead, hit subscribe and the notification button so you'll be notified each time a new episode is released. Plug in and settle in. You're about to be inspired to rise up to your next level of success. Welcome to another episode of Winning in Business. I'm Kelly Rissy, your host and a life and business coach dedicated to helping high-achieving entrepreneurs, small business owners, and leaders beat burnout and achieve with ease. Today, we're diving into a question that might just change the way you see yourself and your work. Are you a high achiever or a high performer? So this episode is especially for those of you who are pushing the limits, who take on every challenge, but often feel like you're spinning your wheels. You might be stuck in the cycle of perfectionism, constantly seeking external validation, or maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, distracted, or like you're never quite doing enough. If this sounds like you, stay tuned because we're going to explore how shifting from being a high achiever to becoming a high performer can create the balanced, sustainable, and fulfilling life that you have been searching for. So the reason I started diving into this difference between high achievers and high performers is because a couple of weeks ago, I was at a dinner with some amazing women of all ages. Some women were in their 30s all the way up to in their 60s. And what I noticed was even the young 30-year-olds, who to me have not been working all that long, were burnt out. They literally stood there and said, I'm burnt out. I don't even know the next steps for me right now because I'm burnt out. And so that got me to thinking, we cannot have these young people burning out. And for me, when I was in my 40s, I ended up in the hospital due to being burnt out and being that high achiever. And so that is why we are diving into that today. So let's start by talking about the high achiever mindset. So high achievers, if you know who you are, raise your hand. So high achievers are driven, they're ambitious, and they set incredibly high standards for themselves. And on the surface, they might seem like a recipe for success, but we're going to dig just a little bit deeper. Here are some common traits of high achievers. High achievers are often a little unfocused, scattered, and overcommitted. They struggle with focus because they are overcommitted. They say yes to too many opportunities and they end up spreading themselves thin. Can you relate? And then what happens is this lack of depth and completion in their projects leaves them feeling unfulfilled, and it leaves them feeling like they're a failure because they're not completing projects, when really it's an overcommitted problem. High achievers also are usually perfectionists. They aim for perfection, not excellence. And the difference is crucial. So perfectionism can be paralyzing and it leads to procrastination and fear of failure. And then nothing ever seems good enough. I always say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I know when perfectionism still creeps back in for me and I have to be like, hold on, sister, let's go take a break. Let's pause and let's reflect on what is going on for a minute. Because what happens is when I get into this perfectionism, I spend way too much time on minor details, which then leads to inefficiencies and delays of me getting all the things that I need to get done. All right, next, difficulty saying no. So high achievers struggle with boundaries. They may not even really understand boundaries. They often equate their worth with their ability to handle everything and please everyone, which leads to burnout. And saying no can feel like a failure. And this, when you do not have the ability to say no, it leads to chronic stress. Chronic stress leads to anxiety, it leads to overwhelm, and that leads right into burnout. Self or high achievers also really struggle with self-criticism and comparison. Truly, they are their own worst critics. Yep, been there, done that. High achievers can be trapped in a cycle of comparing themselves to others, which then leads to feelings of inadequacy, even when they are doing amazing things and really performing well. And they need like that external validation. So people, complimenting them like achieving status, but it is also so exhausting. The external validation that drives them is also what just exhausts them and leads to burnout. And then last, let's talk about the workaholic tendencies. So for high achievers, work often becomes an addiction and they derive their identity from their work, which means then they often neglect personal relationships, they neglect self-care and leisure activities, right? I had a client once who even told me, like, Kelly, I don't even know what my hobbies are. I don't even know what I enjoy anymore. I have no idea. And that leads to a life that is not balanced and is totally unsustainable. So the downside, while high achievers are very much seen as successful, right? High achievers were like, I am a high achiever. The problem is the approach, it's not sustainable. And the constant striving without the satisfaction leads to chronic stress. It leads to work anxiety. The mind never shuts off and eventually burnout. And I like to say that they're caught in the cycle of all or nothing, all or nothing, all or nothing, nothing, they push themselves to the brink, like, oh, like, and then they just crash. And we all see how this is so unhealthy and it truly prevents us from reaching our true potential. Like it's exhausted. Like I am exhausted just saying all that and thinking about it. All right. So if you're a high achiever out there, first of all, I want you to just put your hand on your heart, give yourself a little compassion and say, thank you. Put your name in. Thank you for being a high achiever. You've gotten me where you are today. And I want you to truly recognize yourself and thank yourself for being a high achiever because it has led you to where you are today. It has led you to some great success, right? Now we just need to learn about the high performers so that we can learn how to shift. All right, so let's shift into what does it mean to be a high performer, all right? So the contrast is high performers are equally ambitious, but their approach is fundamentally different. They prioritize sustainability, balance, and long-term success over short-term wins and external recognition. So let's look at some of the key traits of high performers. So high performers, they're focused, they're strategic, and they're very intentional. High performers have a clear sense of purpose and focus, and they set strategic goals that align with their values and prioritize tasks that move them closer to their objectives. They are so intentional with their time that allows them then to avoid distractions and shiny objects that don't serve their long-term vision. They look at excellence over perfection. They strive for excellence and they think to themselves, right? Like what is good enough? What is good enough right now? Which helps them to maintain that balance, right? It's about doing the best but not being perfect. And they understand that progress is more important than perfection, and that making mistakes are learning opportunities and not failures. High performers also have the ability to say no, and they set boundaries. They recognize that no is a powerful tool for maintaining focus and energy. They are clear on their priorities and are not afraid to set boundaries to protect their time and well-being. The ability to say no allows them to stay aligned with their goals and avoid burnout. Y'all, when clients finish with me and they are able to recognize and like be so self-aware of when they know they should say no and when they know they should say yes, like that is huge, because often what happens, right, with those high achievers is that it's the yes, 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 and then they regret it. Then they get mad that they have to do it, where high performers, deep down, they know what is aligned with their yes and their no. They can align them with their values, and it automatically, with their goals as well. And then saying that no, they avoid burnout. Oh, the next one I love. Emotional intelligence and resilience. High performers possess high emotional intelligence. They are aware of their emotions and they know how to manage them effectively. They do not allow setbacks to derail them, and they bounce back quickly from challenges. And this resilience keeps them on track and prevents them from those highs and lows, right? The highs and lows, because that truly can affect productivity. Because when a high achiever, if something emotionally triggers them and they go into a low, then their productivity falls off. I love working with my clients on emotional intelligence, because the biggest thing with emotional intelligence is starting with self-awareness and then moving into self-regulation. And the assessment that I use helps people understand where they are and then where they want to get to and what to do about it. So love it. And that is a key piece, in my opinion. All right, next. High performers, they have consistent routines and self-discipline. Yes. Think of a high performer in your mind right now. And when you think of that person, do they have a very consistent morning routine? Do they take breaks? Do they schedule vacations? Do they have an evening routine? Do they exercise? All of those things, those disciplines, right, build a very strong foundation for sustainable success, especially the self-care aspect as well. High performers are innovative and they are very growth oriented. They are so used to stepping out of their comfort zone that they just get used to being uncomfortable, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. They try new things and they pivot when necessary. Love that. And then last, intrinsic motivation and self-satisfaction. So unlike high achievers who seek external validation, high performers are intrinsically motivated. They derive satisfaction from the process, not just the outcome. They set goals that are meaningful to them and are driven by a sense of purpose and personal fulfillment. So their outcome, high performers achieve sustainable success by maintaining balance, prioritizing their well-being, and aligning their actions with their core values. They experience a quieter mind, healthier relationships, and a lifestyle that supports both personal and professional growth. Y'all, their approach when you watch them is sustainable. It's that peak performance without the burnout, right? I like to call it achieving with ease. And this is the goal. This is the goal, to achieve with ease. We have been running the rat race long enough that we need to be achieving with ease. All right, so how do you make the transition? And maybe you're somewhere in between. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm not all high achiever. I do have some high performing qualities in me. So how do we make the shift? So first of all, awareness. Awareness is the key first step to pretty much everything. So awareness is the first step, and understanding the patterns that are holding you back and making intentional changes to shift your mindset and habits. So here are some practical steps that you can take. Let's look at 7. We'll kind of do 7 quickly, right? All right. So number 1, to move from high achiever to high performer. Number 1, set clear, value-aligned priorities. So take time to identify what truly matters to you. What are your core values, and do they align with your goals? You guys, if one of your core values is family, does your calendar reflect that? If one of your core values is a social life and being around friends, does your calendar reflect that? Right? So rather, you have to align your day, your time with your goals. Also, when it comes down to tasks, right? Your tasks must also align with your goals. So rather than getting caught up in tasks that don't, we need to make sure that you have a focus and your clarity is clear so that you are doing tasks that move you forward. All right, 2, adopt a mindset of excellence, not perfection. Recognize that perfection is not the goal, progress is, right? And celebrate your progress. Celebrate your progress. I always say, look at the little wins along the way, celebrate the progress, and keep going. 3, learn to say no with confidence. I'm going to say that again. Learn to say no with confidence. Practice setting boundaries and saying no to tasks, opportunities, and people that do not align with your priorities. And understand that saying no is not a rejection of others, but it's a commitment to yourself and your goals. When you say no to something, you are saying yes to something else. So if you say no to someone, you're saying yes to yourself. Okay? All right, 4, build consistent, supportive routines, right? We know that high performers thrive on routines that support their well-being and productivity. And so it's all about creating those habits that help you maintain balance, right? Such as, do you have a regular exercise routine? This is important for our health. Do you have a mindfulness practice? This is important for your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health. Do you have specific times for your work and your personal time, right? Do you have hours that you work and hours that you don't work? Consistency will truly create a strong foundation for your performance. 5, develop emotional intelligence, right? So work on increasing your emotional intelligence and becoming more aware of your emotions. Y'all, if you grew up, I'm 53 now, and if you grew up when I did, like, we didn't talk about our emotions at all. And we don't even like to name our emotions, right? You're like, what am I feeling? I don't know. Don't ask me that. So it is really becoming more of aware of our emotions, naming them so we can learn how to manage them effectively, right? So practicing mindfulness, journaling, even just stopping and pausing and going, what is the emotion I'm feeling right now? I love Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart book. It goes through the different emotions. When I do my deep dive, my 1-day breakthrough experience with my clients, the emotional work is something that we do to level off the negative emotions, because it's the negative emotions that trigger us, right? That trigger us, and then we spiral. It's the positive emotions that when those are elevated too high, they also throw us. If we are too happy, too joyful, too excited, we're not getting work done either, right? So it is learning to manage the emotions. 6, focus on completion and follow through. Resist the urge to start new projects without finishing current ones.
And 7, cultivate intrinsic motivation. Y'all, this goes back to connecting with your why. And if you haven't done that in a while, take time to reflect on your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And let that guide your actions and your decisions, right? And just keep digging deeper. Why? What's important about that? What's important about that? What's important about that? And keep going until you get down to the really, really heart of it that brings up emotion. If your why does not bring up emotion in you, maybe some tears, then you're not at the deepest part of your why yet. All right. So, as a life and business coach, my mission is to guide high achievers like you through this transformational journey because I help you shift from a cycle of stress and burnout to becoming a balanced high performer. And the results of that, a quieter mind, a healthier body, a more sustainable lifestyle with consistent routines, emotional healing, a deeper alignment with your values, and a sustainable business or professional life, right? So that you're not 30 and burnt out, 40 and burnt out, 50 and burnt out, but you're truly making an impact and doing what you love as long as you want to do it. And that is the definition of burnout. Burnout is actually when you are no longer doing what you love to do with the joy and the passion that you used to be able to do it in. So imagine this, waking up each day, feeling in control, focused, and confident that you are on the right path. Not because of what others think, but because you know it's right for you. Imagine having the discipline to say no to distractions, the adaptability to handle challenges with grace, and the emotional intelligence to keep your mind calm and centered. That is the transformation from a high achiever to a high performer. All right. I would love to hear feedback from today's episode. For me, this is like I get feedback from when I work with my clients and I watch them transform. They're busy, crazy, hectic, like on the hamster wheel, can't get off, into those habits, into taking time for themselves, into self-care. We're going to get more into that because there's 7 different forms of self-care, or 6 different forms of self-care I want to get into. And not only that, self-love. Just having the self-awareness, so important. So love to hear your feedback today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this episode has helped you reflect on your own journey and the shifts that you can make to become a high performer. And if you're ready to take the next step, and you want that transformation, I would love for you to connect with me. You can visit my website at Kelly, Kelli, at Kelly Risse, RISSE.com. And let's work together. Let's turn your high achieving drive into high performing balanced success. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone who might need to hear it. Until next time, stay focused, stay balanced, and keep striving for sustainable success. And you know what I always say, rise up and live. Keep on winning in business. See you next week.
Thank you for being a part of the Winning in Business podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to rise up to your next level of success, but are worried about increased stress, time for work and yourself and your family, not to mention being exhausted, I'd like to invite you to a complimentary strategy call where I'll show you how you can do it all. I'll help you reclaim time, keep your sanity, handle the chaos with ease, and move to the next level of success that you deserve and desire. I hope you found value in listening today. Please always leave your comments, feedback, or questions. We check them all. I want you to continue winning in business and reach your next level of success. See you next time.